anytime.
Thank you. And thanks, Anne, for recording so that Dakota and Doug, who will be so terribly disappointed if he didn't get to hear all of this, will have missed it. And he'll hear his name even announced. So, Anne, I'm going to turn it over to you to do your introductions next.
Oh, I thought I already did.
Well, you did kind of,
yeah.
but
so
just
Ann Ball,
formally.
Program Director. The Downtown Center has two roles in the state of Maine. We're housed within MDF, which is a nonprofit economic development organization. So MDF does research, economic research for the legislature. We do leadership training, and we oversee the Maine Downtown Center and do workforce development. But the Downtown Center specifically works in currently 24 communities that are either part of the National Main Street Program as a Main Street community, which means they have a nonprofit organization and a full-time professional staff, usually 1 or 1.5 FTEs, and then an affiliate program, which are primarily all volunteer, but a few of them have staff. And then we serve as a statewide resource for downtown revitalization all over the state. We receive funding from all sorts of sources, but one of them is CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is largely directing us to work in LMI communities, low and moderate income. So sorry for all the acronyms. So we go to every corner of the state working with communities on how to revitalize their downtowns. It's largely historic preservation-based economic development. So there needs to be like a core downtown commercial historic district, not necessarily designated historic, but a density of historic buildings. As part of the economic development work we do, healthy communities, walkable communities, downtown farmers markets, this all relates and works together. So that is why I participate in this group, because I am continually trying to encourage our communities to engage in this work, which we did largely. Dawn was on our steering committee years ago with a large federal grant called Healthy, what was it called? Community Transformation, right? Healthy, what was it?
Healthy communities, but it was definitely the community side of it.
Yeah, so it was a really cool project where my partners were public health people, and we were the first time the federal CDC had ever funded an economic development organization. And we did have statistically significant data saying, health and wellness actually are connected to economic development. Small businesses can do all their long hours of work better if they think about getting a walk 15 minutes in the day, even though they don't have a wellness program. There's all sorts of other things. So it's a huge body of work, and I feel like that's why I'm here and why I hang out with a lot of public health people.
That, and I won't let you go. So you and Emily can understand that very well. So Emily, I'm going to pick on you to go next.
Thanks, Dawn. So good to see so many new faces. Well, new to me. I know that many of you, I think, are at the table together, maybe quite often, but my name is Emily Walters. I'm the director of the Let's Go program. For those who aren't familiar, which maybe a couple of you, Let's Go is a community engagement initiative of Maine Health's Community Health corporate services, but we do work statewide to support interested community sites, meaning schools, childcare sites, out-of-school programs, school nutrition initiatives, healthcare practices, in creating healthier space. So increasing healthy eating and active living opportunities for the folks within their organization. We're currently working with about 1,000 sites across the state, and we're really interested in this larger built environment work, knowing that the evidence is really showing that that's really where a lot of the long-term sustainable change can happen. So happy to just be a partner with the efforts that are happening across the table here and within the Maine Prevention Network. Excited to sort of see some of those efforts really start to come to life. So I think I'm here more as a listening ear to sort of see the intersection between the great work that's happening in the broader community and through municipalities and the work that we are doing within these communities in these very specific settings. But from there, I'll punt it over to Sarah Carter from our team, who is going to give a bit of an update on some more specific things that Let's Go is working on. So I'll let Sarah, I'll defer to you.
Thanks, Emily. So nice to meet everyone. My name is Sarah Carter, and like Emily said, I work with the Let's Go program at the central office. And so actually my updates are specific to this work here. Obviously in this group, we have lots of things happening at Let's Go, but specific to and connected to this work around the built environment. It was exciting to meet Dakota on the call. We're really excited that there's the first ever active transportation plan, and do intend on submitting a comment for consideration to our government relations team at Maine Health. I would say it's all basically a big thumbs up and supporting, and just excited about the plan. And then just wanted to also share that I myself and maybe a couple other folks on this group also sit on the MPHA's obesity subcommittee, which we're involved in developing a resource guide for municipalities. So really looking at the MOAC recommended municipality strategies for physical activity that relate to the built environment. And I think I saw this was on the agenda too, so I won't dive in deep, but just thought I'd share that that's something that we're excited to be jumping into and be a part of with Let's Go. So looking at those built environment strategies, and then going to sort of pair them with example ordinances, policies, or programs that municipalities or those working with municipalities can help move that along and help with that built environment. So, and then just the last update is for Let's Go, we're planning on distributing like a sort of a Let's Go snapshot of program implementation to municipalities to have them have a better understanding or look at sort of what does Let's Go look like in their communities. So if, for example, if they have a certain number of early care and education sites or school sites, or basically to show them who we're working with in their communities and help support that HEAL efforts going forward. So did I miss anything, Emily? Okay.
Thanks, Sarah. Either Jesse or Brendan, do you want to go next?
Sure, I can go. I'm Jessie Chalmers. I work at Midcoast Hospital in Brunswick. I work in the community health department, manage a couple of different grants. One of them, and I'm here representing HEAL, Healthy Eating, Active Living, and part of Maine Prevention Network. I don't have any updates to share, but this is not new to our department. In terms, we've done some of this work in the past, but most recently we've been working more closely with schools, early childhood, and so this built environment piece is a newer focus for us. And I know there's a lot of great work being done in our community, and I look forward to kind of connecting the dots and drilling down a little deeper and getting involved.
Yeah, Melissa often can't make the meeting, but she's been a member of the team for many years and shares occasionally what's going on. And there has been a great deal of work for trails. I think that one thing that you could update the group on is the accessibility studies that have been done.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we so one of the groups that Melissa began years ago is called Get Active Southern Midcoast. And we've brought together our local land trust representatives, towns, and local rec departments, and we meet quarterly. And some of the work we've been doing the last year or so is working with the Adaptive Outdoor Education Center. So they provide adaptive physical activity opportunities. They're kind of an offshoot of Maine Adaptive, who traditionally, or who works with physically challenged folks, and they've expanded to work with adults and children who are not neurotypical or have not just physical disabilities, but also emotional, mental challenges. And they have worked a lot with Enoch Glidden, who some of you might know. He is his card reads motivational speaker adventurer. That's his title. But some of the work he does is he was born without the use of his legs, so he's been in a wheelchair for his whole life and has spent a lot of time on trails and is now working to assess trails for accessibility. So we have used some of our funding to help provide a stipend for him to work with all our local land trusts, and they've chosen a trail that they want to work on, had him assess that trail, and has recommended all the necessary changes to make it more accessible for those with limitations. And there's been some real all but one of our land trusts has participated and had him come on board to assess the trail. So he's a great resource. We look forward to continuing to do more of that work. Yeah, happy to talk to folks more if you want to reach out about that.
He's on our list for technical assistance from, I should say, my list. So, but Melissa has warned us that you have first dibs on him. So
Yeah, and then I think Lincoln County second.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
who's
that's the way
who's
it
the
rolls.
funding source, Jesse, that's paying for his time and those sub awards?
So our hospital has community health funds
Oh,
that
okay,
are
okay, yeah.
providing a stipend, and it's a very small stipend too. He actually doesn't. He could probably charge a lot more than.
Don't
he
say that,
does.
Jesse. You're
I
gonna, this
know,
is
I
just
know.
encouraging people to snatch them up. Don't say that.
I know. I'm like,
this
really
is
selling
public
him.
health. There's not a lot of money
Yeah,
that
no,
goes around here.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to know if there was another source, because,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, urban trail systems as well, outside of the land trusts that are connected to the downtowns and, go down to, anyway, there are all sorts of other ways that he would be incredibly useful.
Yeah.
But I'd have to find a funding source.
Brendan, with your comment, I think it's appropriate that you're coming up to do yours as well. So you have had some experience with Enoch, or I don't know if it's you or you just know of his work.
Yeah, I know of his work. I know he's visited local trails too in Oxford County and had written kind of like a series of journal or blog entries for Maine Trail Finder when he goes around and visits different trails around the state. And yeah, I just love it. Yeah, so I'm Brendan Schaffler. I'm a program manager at Healthy Oxford Hills and serve as a network facilitator for the Oxford County Wellness Collaborative. And I'm also a member of the Maine West Initiative, which is mostly my connection to this group now. I started my journey in public health doing active community environment work. And that was 10 years ago. And now my connection is mostly outdoor recreation. So I'll talk a little bit quickly about Maine West just to set the context for the updates I'll give. It's a multi-sector collaborative that folds together conservation, education, health, and economic development, and is funded by Betterment, a Maine-based foundation who is kind of just exploring what happens when you bring these people together to work on and improving things for rural communities. So it's about 15 or so of us that are members of Maine West from those different sectors, 15 or 20. And early on, we identified some topic areas that we thought brought us all together. And one of those is active communities. So I convened the Active Communities Group for Maine West. The flagship initiative of that group has really been something called the Second Nature Adventure Challenge, which is an outdoor rec challenge where we set a goal to say, together as a community, we're going to get out for 1,500 different trail adventures. And we're going to get 200 people out. And then once we reach that goal, X amount of money is going to be donated to a local service organization. So it's a way to appeal to people's altruism to get them out the door and active. And it's been really successful for the past couple of years. And with input from Sarah and others, we've made a lot of improvements to the accessibility of it, like making it much easier to be involved in the Second Nature Adventure Challenge. And we count a lot more. It used to be just a trail-based challenge. And now it's like, if you want to go snowshoe in the field behind your house, that's awesome. Just tell us you did it. So way more inclusive. And we've got our winter one coming up, which is always over February vacation. And we're likely to be raising money for groups that are getting kiddos outdoors and active again. So last year, Maine West piloted a couple of different programs to offer a bit more support to particular groups that we wanted to get outdoors and enjoying the benefit of being active outdoors. So one of those was for lack of a better word, at-risk youth. Another was older adults, and another was people in recovery. We're expanding all of those pilots this year in their second year. And a really cool thing about the recovery outings program is that PBS is coming to include that program as part of their, I think it's called America Outdoors program. So it's a chance to really draw some attention to that. And we're really trying to connect people in recovery to being outside as like a healing experience, as a great way to take care of your mental health. And the program involves a pretty significant amount of barrier reductions, like making sure that it is as easy as we can make it for people to participate. So that includes giving them help getting there, making sure they have all the equipment, and paying someone to provide the guidance if it's something like kayaking or fishing. Like if we want somebody who's experienced on the water, or as an angler who's going to help people troubleshoot everything and walk them through the activity. And yeah, Dwayne, just saw your message. Snow shoveling would definitely count too for the Second Nature Adventure Challenge. Yeah, so really great program. We're really happy with it. And the survey data that we're getting back from participants shows how much they value it and how important it is as part of their recovery journey. We got some really great experiences and like first person feedback on those other programs we offered as well. The at-risk youth. We're able to serve a very small amount of kiddos because it's a pretty expensive and intensive program, but it makes some pretty life-changing experiences happen in the lives of those kiddos. And then the older adults program has gone really well as well. Really engaging. And I think there's this, in a lot of cases, my experience has been there's a pent-up demand for older adults, people in community in general, but older adults especially, just to have some sort of handholding to get active and outside. I've seen that with walking programs before. I've seen that with getting people on trails as well. So really happy with these programs and hoping that we can find a way to make them sustainable too after Betterment's not at the table anymore. They've signed on for 10 years of funding, which is amazing.
Wow,
But
that is amazing.
we're in year maybe 8 or so.
Oh,
But yeah, for a funder to commit, like most funders, when they say we offer long-term funding, it's like 2 or 3 years. So 10 years is pretty exceptional. We're really happy. And yeah, part of our sustainability plan at Maine West is to be looking for that sort of ongoing funding and be doing stuff that's cool enough that it would invite investment from other folks.
when you say, thank you, Brendan, always amazing to hear about your work and the work over there in Oxford. I'm wondering what the age range when you say older adults is.
So there's no qualification, like if they are marketed as programs for older adults and show up if that fits your identity. So
Okay, it's whatever
involves,
people are self-identifying as.
Exactly. I think it's involved people from like 50 somethings to 90 somethings is what I think we saw last year.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Great. Any questions for Brendan? Dwayne, this is the part where we transition a bit. We're going to have you do your introductions and then go right into your into the agenda part of sharing what you've been doing in Capitol.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. Capitol, I was going to work my way to that anyway, because in hearing all of the varied backgrounds of everybody, you will find that in all of our life's journey, but in my own, you end up networking with a lot of people in a lot of different areas. And I've been taking notes down, and I'm going to warn you ahead of time, it's going to sound like I'm rambling all over the place, only because I've been involved with quite a few different disciplines. So my background is I retired as the Director of Multimodal Planning with Maine DOT. That's why Dakota kind of chuckled. I sent him a little message letting him know my background, because it was that division that Dakota now works in. And so that, you know, basically he's doing work in the area that was my life's work, at least 36 years worth. So with DOT, just to, like Madeline, just to let you know, we provided the funding, and we're in the partnership with all of the MPOs and the RPOs. And as a director, we didn't have a large staff, so I took on assignments to those groups. And so I've made many a trip to Bangor with BACS. Rob Kennerson was director at the time, and we worked together. But I've also worked with Lewiston, Auburn, and Kittery, and Portland. And of course, as I said, the RPOs. My RPO was Aroostook County, so I got to make some wonderful trips up to Holton. So enough of that. In terms of what we're interested here in terms of healthy opportunities in thinking about transportation, I'm on the board of the Kennebec River Rail Trail, or the Friends. We're the fundraising element of that. And my history, though, goes back 20 some years before that. In that, in multimodal planning, one of the programs we administered was both the what was congestion management, air quality, and later became a program known as transportation enhancements. And so the Kennebec River Rail Trail started out with funding to be a way for commuters to walk and bicycle to work rather than being in a motor vehicle. And obviously that had the congestion management aspect, but perhaps more importantly, especially from a health standpoint, it was the improvement to air quality. So that's how the Kennebec River Rail Trail got born, and many of the other trails here in the state. And then we, obviously that project received more funding and goes between Augusta and Gardner, and provides a lot of healthy opportunities. Anybody who's gone down there and sees all the activity on that trail. And the beauty of that is that it's a safe place to do it, which again, I'm working my way to tell you about Capitol, which is all about safety. So I've got my notes here to see if I need to touch on some other things along the way here. The various in multimodal, by the way, it was again kind of taking the focus away from motor vehicles, and our focus was on the other alternative modes of transportation, which in Maine are very varied. It included, of course, aviation, but also a very robust ferry system. Maine is blessed with beautiful islands. And many of those obviously you need transportation to get back and forth to enjoy them. And then the transit systems, public transit, and the bike ped, which mentioned earlier. I worked with Patrick. He was on my staff, worked with him for years. And the transit one has kind of been interesting in that in my retired life, I'm on the Public Transit Advisory Council with that Maine DOT has. On that, I represent the age-friendly, because here in Augusta, I've been one of the founding members, if you will, of the age-friendly effort, which through AARP is extremely robust here in the state of Maine. And with age-friendly, one of the big things is the maintenance of health, doing healthy things. When we did our action plan in Augusta, and I won't know the proper term for it, but when you do a survey and you collect what people's interests are, and then you create a graphic of that with all the different names of things like, health or walking or whatever. Anyway, the one that you do it based on the number of responses, the largest text, it turned out, for that was the Kennebec River Rail Trail, which obviously points to the fact that age-friendly folks are definitely want to get out there and be active and utilize that kind of facility. And you notice I'm kind of dodging around. I said age-friendly folks. Earlier it was mentioned about how people identify. Now that I'm the age that I am, I really bristle anymore about when I hear the word elderly and all the different terms. And yet I know we got to refer to things in some way, but it's interesting when you get there yourself, how it takes on a whole nother kind of meaning. Oh, it was mentioned about comprehensive plans, by the way. So, and none of this I had planned before. This is me just listening to you folks and what's come up. But I'm on the update committee here in Augusta for the comprehensive plan. And I can't stress enough how important those plans are, only again, heralding back to my DOT career. When we would look at the applications for funding for trails and different bike ped type projects, one of the things that we were looking for was that effort, that need expressed in a community's comprehensive plan. We reviewed every municipal comprehensive plan as they came out, looking for those kind of items, because otherwise it's kind of awkward that in the application, when you're of course focused on getting money, it's very, so important to different things. And yet you go to the comprehensive plan and maybe there's not a mention, not a word about that particular initiative. So I can't stress enough that. And where I was on the update for Augusta, I was able to advocate for at least 2 or 3 pages worth of age-friendly material in there. And amongst those, of course, is the idea of active transportation for all ages. That's how I'm going to cover that descriptor. And thinking about our age-friendly efforts here in Augusta, which of course COVID kind of put a bit of a hiatus to that. But one of the goals we had was, if you're familiar with Mill Park here in Augusta down by the Kennebec River, it's still one of our goals to have an exercise circuit that would be geared towards, again, anybody, but aging people would feel comfortable perhaps utilizing it as well. And another area, and I'm working my way to capital, by the way. Another area, though, that I should mention, because they're kind of in a way my employer now, in the sense of they're a pseudo employer. Since my retirement, I volunteer at Maine General Medical Center. So, you know, I have a connection with the health field in a couple different ways. One that is that, of course, Maine General has a very robust program of offering courses, and some of those are active, you know, doing various exercises and so on, healthy eating. You may have seen their catalog that comes out each like fall, spring, summer. And then I kind of got segued into being the president of the auxiliary at Maine General, which got me into the wonderful world of fundraising. And so that's a very challenging area. We've been able to provide upwards of $50,000 every year for various needs that can't be met by the regular Maine General budget. A lot of it's in education. So finally, okay, with Age Friendly, one of our areas of concern was the idea of safe pedestrian and bicycle, but probably more pedestrian oriented, you know, crosswalks, the timing of traffic signals that allow you to make a crossing, that whole public safety area. And with our Age Friendly committee, we were very fortunate in that indeed we were all ages. So there were several of us that we formed a separate focus group called Capital, and what Capital stands for is Cyclists and Pedestrians Invigorating the Augusta Life. So that's what covers Capital. And it was a total age spectrum of folks that our goal is to encourage and pursue bicycle and pedestrian safety initiatives, obviously in Augusta, but everywhere as far as I'm concerned. I've been very involved in participating in and will be making comments about the active transportation plan, which interestingly enough, talk about things tying in and networking. That active transportation ties in with the other plan that I attended and participated in, which is the public transportation plan. And as I told you, I'm on the council, but in order to get to much of our public transit, you need to be able to walk or bicycle to it. There's that connection from your front door, as it were, to get to that transit location. And so all of these things kind of definitely tie in together. So back to Capital. So our group in our advocacy garnered the interest of various city council members here in Augusta. And so this past fall, we were successful in having the city council by ordinance create a bicycle and pedestrian safety committee that will advise the city council and will work especially with the already existing traffic calming effort here in Augusta. So then, you know, lo and behold, this past summer, you know, I really wasn't busy enough. It was like, boy, I got to find more things to do. I'm just, you know, I'm getting lazy. So I met Ann and Don, and of course, another member of our group I must mention, John Basti, that we all attended and participated in AARP's Walking College. And so my action plan that we all had to have, of course, that was the purpose of doing it, was to create action, get something done. So my action plan was to provide funding to that bicycle and pedestrian safety committee in terms of communications, media, getting the word out, education, and it's a two-way education, both in terms of bicyclists and pedestrians, knowing what they, need to do in their responsibilities, and then obviously, of course, the motoring public, those who are driving, and but it's that education of what everybody hopefully can modify their behavior to, accomplish these things safely. And in the interim of time, Augusta, not attached to with capital or with that new committee, is going to have a couple of projects that are funded through partnership with Maine DOT and some hefty city funding to create high visibility pedestrian crossings, doing a demo of different materials and things in the downtown crosswalks of Augusta, which had already had some experimental things occur through capital in cooperation with the Bicycle Coalition Maine and the City of Augusta and Maine DOT and AARP. Point there being partnerships. It's all about all of us working together, creating partnerships to accomplish something. We had a lot of temporary type bollards down in downtown Augusta, if you happen to have traveled through there during the summer months. They're not there now in the winter because the snowplows don't like them. But that was an initiative to make the crosswalks more visible. And of course, an education item there is how pedestrians need to present themselves at a crosswalk to create that visual with drivers to be able to then cross safely. Because otherwise, if you just bolt out there figuring, hey, they need to stop for me, you might have a harsh reality that they don't. And then also some rapid repeating beacons are going to be installed in another project, kind of an extension of downtown here in Augusta towards the Bond Street area intersection. So anyway, that's just occurring coincidence in time. However, it's a great indicator that the city is very serious about providing safety, because back to the idea of pursuing healthy, in order to walk for health, you need to, especially in urban areas, be able to walk safely on maintained sidewalks and crosswalks and so on. And I think that's about it for me. Any questions?
I have a couple, but I'll see if other people do.
I always have questions. So one, you had mentioned, Dwayne, about the bike ped committee, like for, that is in an advisory role for the city council. And I'm
Sure.
curious, was that like passed as a resolution? Because I think that's something where there could be bike ped committees and communities, and they're sort of working in tandem with municipalities. But if they're serving in a more advisory role, then they have sort of more meat to it, right? They're looked at as like, looked to actually pass ordinances and change policy. So can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yes. Capital really as a group was that idea that, yeah, Augusta, because citizens came together and we were being advocates, we interacted and had a voice with the city, but no legal standing, if you will. And so the committee that has been formed was by ordinance. So it's a City of Augusta, or, it's official, it's legal. The membership of that committee is defined, there's members from the community, members from the health sector, members from, well, a member from Capitol itself to continue the journey. And then it will be led by a city councilor will be the leader of that committee. So obviously, when that committee advises the city council, it's got the clout, if you will, that the leader of the group is one of the city councilors. So it's definitely saying and reinforcing that this is an important, serious matter here in Augusta.
So what you're describing, Dwayne, is exactly what the recommendation is, to formalize active community environment teams in municipal work. And previously, we've done a lot of training, we being the active community environment work group, on those types of approaches. So Sarah, exactly what he's saying. And I think what you might have been asking is, how did you get there, right? So how did you go from Capitol? Whose idea was it? How did you formalize it? Because that's what we're kind of asking with the Maine Prevention Network, for folks to be supporting the development of a formalized municipal group like that.
Yeah, a lot of credit goes to Kirsten Brewer, who is also a Walking College alumnus, and she is, I will say, is the leader of Capitol. And she and we met with the assistant city manager, and basically, we drafted a proposal for having this committee, and worked with them. And then, of course, there's a process. One of the key parts of the process was to make sure that the city attorney was on board for all the legalities. And so, we navigated that system, if you will, that process. And thankfully, again, we had a couple of city councilors had been attending our Capitol meetings, which we have monthly. And so they were positioned to advocate for this and be supportive. And so when it was presented, initially, it goes through a couple, especially where it was an ordinance, went through a couple of different readings, if you will. So it takes a few months, but there was some tweaking and so on. But finally, it was a unanimous vote in the end. All the councilors were extremely supportive.
And there's no funding that supports that typically, right?
No specific funding other than through the Walking College, the grants that we were offered, which, $550. I applied on behalf of the city of Augusta, so the check went to the city to fund that committee, or the efforts of that committee to advocate for bicycle and pedestrian safety. So that's the seed money. Hopefully that will draw more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any other questions for Dwayne? Besides, do you want to be part of this group? That's my question to you.
Oh,
So the
as you can
list of
tell,
your-
I'm kind of, I need more things to do.
Yeah,
so-
you're bored. You're bored.
No,
I'll
I'd
add
be-
you right to
I'd be
the
glad
list.
to. Okay, great, thank you.
And the other thing I would probably ask, and I'm not sure if some of my other colleagues would be interested in this, but I'd love to see the formal proposal that was drafted that facilitated the group actually being formed within the municipality.
Yes. I will see what I can do there in the sense that a lot of the things I have are in paper format. So to get that, electronic, obviously, I'll see what I can do.
If you reach out to Kirsten, if you just copy me, maybe you don't have to hand it off. I can just work with her to get that if she might have access to it.
Yeah, and in the city, I know some, the staff there, so they probably could provide.
I don't know if it would be on the website, Sarah, because it was the proposal. Maybe what happened is on there, but
Well, often they have, like, if it's passed as a resolution or it would be actually a document on the website. So you wouldn't maybe see the iterations or all the versions, but you would see the final one there, I think. So, but it depends also on the capacity of towns' websites. But I would imagine that the city of Augusta has a pretty robust website.
Yeah, the approved resolution would definitely be available there. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to document the process.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I feel like there's a range, like Sarah was alluding to, of, the power of the organizations and the structure of this in every community around the state. Some are given, more power or staff support from their municipality or budgets or not. I mean, there's so many different versions of this work, similar to what we were finding with complete streets policies, Dawn, when we were working on one of our collaborative grant proposals. We were like, oh, what is, Augusta's complete streets policy? And remember, we were like, there's no teeth in this at all. Like, no one has to do anything. They're like, we'll try,
if you feel like it.
Right. So I feel like this work, as we start to kind of keep pushing it out and trying to get communities to either create committees or form committees or whatever, and same with complete streets, we're just going to have all these different versions and we have to synthesize it to, like, actually, this is the best practices, this is the way to get the teeth into it. So it's great to start collecting it, is my point. And I appreciate you bringing it up, Sarah.
And that's going to be a really good segue to the Maine Public Health Association focus, because that's what I have my fingers crossed that it will end up being, not just here's a bunch of toolkits, but this is what the ask is and this is how we do it. Because the best, good, better, best opportunities for people to choose from is really something that municipalities would probably be able to digest. And Emily, your hand is up.
So this may be a total naive question, but I'm just curious from a municipality standpoint, like, so for school departments, like, you have like the Maine School Board, Maine School Management Association, which they sort of like generate these, a sort of like Maine School Management Association approved policies that are sent to school boards that can be tweaked. I didn't know, for municipalities, is that not something that there's like a municipal body that sort of is like that generates sort of these types of ordinances? I'm guessing.
I'll make an attempt at an answer that I don't actually know for a certainty, but I would think that as more communities move towards formalizing and making more of a legal entity of, in this case, bicycle and pedestrian safety type initiative, that the Maine Municipal Association, which is a larger body that many of the municipalities belong to, and look to for guidance, that they may, be then the source because of all this popularity of having bike and ped safety committees. And then things could probably be a good way to have things be more uniform.
I'm
And
thinking,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, that they've been on our list for a while, and I know Becca and Ann and Doug and I talked about them as a possible resource, and we were actually looking to see, you know, where do we move from here, and who else do we need? So Maine Municipal Association comes up. I think, you know, just reaching out to them and figuring out who would be interesting, because we have Maine Municipal Association on other state level groups, and they don't often come to the table because of just they're over tapped. And if you remember, Emily was part, maybe you don't remember, but
Ann
the
Charles.
active, yeah, Ann Charles. I mean, she's great, awesome, and works with all the municipalities on health and wellness, but can't make the meetings because just of the schedule. It's crazy. So, and Sarah, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just was gonna follow up to what Dwayne was saying around, like, there is, I mean, I know when, like, it's and both, I think. So like there might, even though there are sort of like documents that people are borrowing, I think that's one thing with the example policies and procedures, is that no one wants to reinvent the wheel when they have 6,000 other things on their plate. So they look for examples that already exist. But I think they often still run them by their own town lawyers, because depending on the town, they might, it's still sort of the security check. And I think we found that too with working with school districts, even though we'd say this policy is passed by the Maine the Maine Management Association, they would still say, oh, we need to have our lawyer look at it. So it's sort of like this, even if it's already vetted, I think that's sort of like their.
Yeah, I think that they are responsible for templates, and that's what schools look for them for, not as much as an approved policy, but policy language that they can plug and play, and then they can adapt it to their needs. That's my experience with the Maine School Management, because we've tried to tap them before too, and they will not give concrete answers because of that reason. They can't. It's not their purview. So. Great. Anything else for Dwayne? Dwayne, thank you. And thank you for agreeing to come to these meetings. We'll be super happy to have you as a new member, and look forward to continuing to hear the great updates from your area. Next on our agenda, really, and I know it's time to stand, stretch, and move, and I'm sure you have been doing that. I'm still sick, so I'm sitting here because if I get up, I probably won't be back. So I will just say I'm going to keep moving forward so I can make sure I make it to the end of this meeting. Next on our agenda was really Maine Public Health Association's new focus for their member obesity focused subgroup. And this year we're looking at supporting more active community environment work or built environment. And as Jesse and Sarah, as part of that group too, have been part of that. They can fill in the blanks of anything I missed, but realistically at our last meeting, I continue to be the voice of unreason, I guess, because whenever things get brought up, like, let's make a new toolkit, I am always really mindful of all of the work that's been done and already exists for us not to recreate the wheel and not make it just for Maine, but really what do municipalities need and what do the folks that are providing technical assistance need? So with some gentle prodding from me, I redirected us a little bit to go back to look at the Maine Obesity Advisory Council's evidence-based recommendations. Imagine that, Emily. We pulled all those things together and people actually will use them now. So I think that that's going to be a really good focus for us as we move forward. And then I'm going to continue to say, what do municipalities need and what do the folks implementing it? So the folks implementing it are, Jesse, and I'm not sure, Brendan, if you're part of that with Alicia, but you know who the folks are that are doing this work. What do they need so that they can do their job? And I think what Dwayne's talking about today, what he shared with us, that's all information that would be helpful for folks if they're approaching a municipality. Number one, what does the comprehensive plan entail? It may or may not. How do you figure it out? It may not be worth your time at this point. You may need to start in a new direction. So, and Madeline, I don't even know if there's something in that area that may impact your work, but be glad to share it with you as we move forward. So we meet monthly, and I think we'll probably have a pretty tight turnaround because they usually like to get these things done very quickly, but I think we've been tasked with looking at what strategies there are and then coming back to the table to, as either Jesse or Sarah said, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one of you actually brought those points up. We will be looking at what else can we provide that helps to support the implementation of that. Although on the website, there are links to resources, they just may not be as well documented as we need. So that may help the MOOC as well. If we find more resources, we can add those to that website to help folks. And again, Maine Obesity Advisory Council, yet another state level group. Any other additions to that, Jesse or Sarah? And I thought Becca was going to try to be here, but it is legislative session. And did you see her on the news last night? Advocating being part. So yay to the car dealerships, Lee Honda, whatever, I don't know what his last name is, but he's advocating for better performance from all kinds of vehicles as they're creating them, that they use less gas and have less emissions. And he's really going out on a limb to continue to push that. There's a legislator, I think in Yarmouth or Falmouth, that also has some bills that are being pushed forward to help to reduce emissions and up the efficiencies of cars in Maine in general. So they're doing some awesome work. And Becca had a little sound bite there, although they didn't get her name right, but it was just this morning. So maybe they'll fix it by tonight. Any questions on that? On your agenda, you will have seen a link to the Maine State Active Transportation Plan. And as Dakota said, it closes pretty soon. So if you have public comment, it sounds like many of you are already providing that. Dwayne, yay. From your perspective, that's awesome.
January 30th. It's that
Yeah.
tight.
That immediate.
Timeline.
Yeah. And Emily and Sarah, sounds like Maine Health is on top of it.
I did it as an individual, but
Did you?
submitted it the other day. Yep.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Yeah.
A private citizen. Yeah, I would not be able to do it for Maine CDC either, or MCD. The final part of the agenda really is to look, is for Ann and I to share our dream, our big action plan. And I believe we shared it before, but we were just going to highlight some pieces today and basically where we are, right? So it's in the body of the agenda, so you can open it if you like or review it, but we have goals. Goal one is to increase capacity to support active communities. And that is it says fall 2022 through quarter one 2023. We're a little behind that already, I think, Ann, just because of we haven't gotten all the funding that we need to be able to move things forward. But I feel like we are going to make it at least by June. So maybe quarter two. And there's nobody holding us to these deadlines except ourselves. I will put that right out in front. This was part of the requirement, as Dwayne said, or the part of an outcome for participating in the Maine State Walking College. So it gave us an opportunity to think strategically. And Ann and I both agreed that because of this group that we're on together, we really want to do something that was statewide, hence the way that we developed our action plan. And I think that other key pieces will be looking to convene this group, and we did that. So check, yay. And recruit walking college participants. We've done that. So maybe I am on track for Q1. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally on board for it. Dwayne just joined us, and if we can get Kirsten, that will be number 2. It will be good to go. That's like a quarter of our members right now. We also do want to invite other walking college participants to come and talk about their work. So moving forward, we hope to have more guest stars like Dwayne, and then entice them to join us, of course. Yeah, so I think we did that one, Ann. As I re-look at it, I think we did that one. Yes. 2023 measurement, increase the number of members on the team. So far, we've done it. All right. Goal 2 is really around identifying technical assistance and training needs, and this is where the funding comes in. We are looking to actually contract with Hart Consulting to help us to identify what the current bike ped and active community environment teams, how many there are. We have a baseline from Bicycle Coalition of Maine, but what are they working on? What do they need? And what can we provide as a gap analysis? So that will be, second one works.
It's just our plan.
Oh, okay. We're on track. Is that what you're telling me? We're finally on track. Okay, great. So we are waiting to hear back whether we are actually.
Well, we got 1,500 from America Walks Community Challenge. In addition to each of us put our $550 that Dwayne mentioned towards it. So that's $2,600, but we need like $5,600. And we had another commitment that we're just waiting on. I don't know what's happening with it, which is through AARP Maine. And then we put out we had another call from America Walks asking for other proposals and for other funding. And so we said, yes, we are interested. This is how much we need, but we haven't heard back. So we're in a little bit of a holding pattern.
So we would want to do a large scale outreach to see what we need. And this would also help inform the work of the Maine Prevention Network folks. So I won't keep it close to my chest. I will share it widely with all of you as we move forward. So we are looking to contract, but we don't have enough resources yet to actually get started. And after we analyze all that, then we'll start to look at what we need for training and technical assistance and catalog those, and then hopefully develop more resources, implement and support the training. And a lot of that will come through the work of the Maine Prevention Network. So there'll be opportunities to train folks on the ground and through this group, and then be able to engage, hopefully do some in-person large gatherings with municipalities, and maybe we get Maine Municipality Association to help us convene partners. They have a lovely gathering place there, so it might be a good opportunity to be able to bring stakeholders together. I know that the folks from the Trails Association did that, and I think it was the Friends, actually, Merry Meeting and the Friends of the Rail Trail had convened us. Joanne Joy was our convener at the time. I want to say 5 years ago, or maybe it was 4 years ago, right before the pandemic. And we had an amazing turnout, and I can envision that would be something that we would do again. So for all the folks that are working on active community environment at the municipal level or regional level, that's on this plan. It's embedded in it. It's not inherent when you read it, but that's really what the scope of work will be. And then the last goal was really engaging partners in actively promoting walking, biking, rolling, and other means of transportation. So really looking at messaging, because there's a national campaign, Moving Matters, that has really great materials. It's from the Physical Activity Alliance and sanctioned by US CDC. So it comes with all credibility. Everything's been beta tested. There's different audience levels, and that has print. It has social media, it has widgets, it has everything you could ever want to communicate out the message. So that will be something that, again, I will push through the main the main prevention network, but also available for anyone that wants to party along with us. And our measurement for that was social media metrics show increases in engagement across the platform. So it's also easy to measure that. So that's it in a nutshell for us. There's wonderful things in there that I'm sure you would love to read about. So if you're really looking for more, it's only 6 pages. It's a short read. So if you haven't read it yet, please do. And something to look forward to as we move that forward. And I will say, I'm super excited about this because honestly, we haven't had a concrete way to move forward in many years. We've been, as I mentioned, I say treading water, but if we were using our acronyms here, I guess we're marching in place or even stretching, because we've been just trying to hold on to each other and share what's been going on. So I finally feel like we're moving forward and we have opportunity to make some big advances in this work. Oh, and I will be writing another NOA for more national funding. So fingers crossed on that. It's a big, big risk. Questions? Just because we made it doesn't mean you can't be critical of us. Just because Ann and I spent a lot of volunteer hours doing that. I was rereading it today and before this and realized we're already, you know, we talked about the aging of our population and I was like, okay, that was 22. We're already in 23. I got to update the demographics and the numbers.
That's true.
Never ends.
Yeah, from my perspective, it gives us a jumping off point for other funding and direction, and it kind of solidifies the downtown center's involvement in the work, which is, you know, you can't just, I need documents to refer to in writing proposals and keeping this subject matter kind of top of mind in community and economic development. So it helps for that as well as hopefully where we get to.
One of Doug's updates, because he sent them to me because he couldn't be on the call, Doug Beck from Department of Ag, Conservation and Forestry. There is a proposed 30 million, you probably heard about this, $30 million Main Trails bond. And if the legislature passes that, or if it goes to, I think it would have to be voted by the people, of course. So if it was enacted, it would add funding to benefit trails. And if passed, it would be run out of Doug's. So Doug would be in charge, of course. And if he's listening to this, of course, I have already asked him for a person to work for me. And he said, not a physical activity person, but a rails person. I said, I don't care who it is, just somebody to own this work. So it's not just a small slice of my work, but somebody to really be dedicated to moving this forward. And that's what sometimes you need. So it's about $7.5 million a year. Yes, Emily?
Of course you knew I had to make a comment at some point. I was just going through the plan. I was having a hard time opening it, but now I have it open. I'm feeling like this should possibly be some type of attachment or addendum or something with the Maine State Active Transportation Plan. Like when I see this, it's sort of like one thing that was talked about, I think, in open session, in the feedback sessions, was there's an implementation section of the Active Transportation Plan, but it doesn't quite have like the metrics or it's not there as far as like the depth of it. So I'm just wondering if that's something that to be considered, of whether it's somehow linking the two, or I don't know. that's just what comes to mind to me, that it's like this to me, what you've created is the implementation, a piece of the implementation of the overall active transportation plan.
Well, that's a really good point.
Yeah, it is.
And sorry, one other comment. Oh, it might be more of a question. So I wish the Bike Coalition was here too, but when they had the session around just like walking through the active transportation plan, one thing I was curious about was the monitoring of the plan once it's finalized. And so it's like, who's sort of responsible? I mean, I think it's the DOT. I get that is ultimately responsible for monitoring the implementation of the plan. But I've heard like, so there's this active community environment team, but then there was talk of this other bike head committee. And I'm just wondering sort of how, like, is there a way to link them, or are they two very separate entities? And does one of them have sort of the oversight of the transportation plan? Maybe a lot.
So I think I know the answer to that, and it has been interesting. And this goes back to capacity on my part. I think at one point Patrick was overseeing that group, and Patrick, who is not here today, he went from Maine DOT, and now Dakota's in his position, to US DOT, took Wayne Emmington's place on our team. But my understanding is Maine DOT does convene that group, not Bicycle Coalition Maine, although Bicycle Coalition in Maine may facilitate it. I'm not sure the relationship, because they are under contract to provide services for Maine DOT, and maybe Dwayne knows, I'm not sure. But I was asked years ago if I wanted to join, and I thought it made a lot of sense. But as you know, I don't have a whole lot of bandwidth here. So, I never pursued it. It was just like something I couldn't even wrap my head around at the time, to add another layer to my work at that point. That's why I really think it's important to have more capacity at the state health department to cover some of these buckets, because I can't. Would I like to? Yes. But then I'm dropping balls everywhere. So. And that's what I think it is.
Yeah, similarly, I think this kind of initiative appears or feels sometimes really, I don't know if fragmented is too strong a word, but like there's just so many people touching it, but not kind of like one body bringing it together. And there isn't that one, honestly, leader. Like, I certainly can't lead this effort in my job either. That kind of pulls it all together under one umbrella. I feel like I don't know, like I also take the long view towards any sort of community development work. And I'm like, well, you just keep going and you keep trying to build the relationships, and now we can be like, Dakota, how can you reference this? This is an active, newly formed document that's about implementation of part of this plan. And we know you're DOT, but this is a little more public health-ish. I think that's also it. We're still dealing with different sectors of this work. So I guess I am just going to sit with what you've said, because this is the kind of stuff I work on so much of my work is like, all right, how do we make all these disparate dots work together? Like, I felt like when Dwayne was talking, I was like, he's like connecting all the dots, and that's the way I do my work. So I don't really have a good answer, Emily, other than I'm like, oh, you're right.
Well, and I mean, I'm certain I consider myself a dot connector as well. And
Yeah.
when I'm thinking about, and we haven't submitted it yet, but our comment for the active transportation plan, and in it, I had referenced MOWOC recommendations, like, somehow tying it to the MOWOC recommendations, but can revise it to also include, for example, like there's so much.
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you do that, because, I don't think from my lens, it's not a state approved document. It's something that Ann and I did representing our organizations as public, private,
Yeah,
if you will. I had permission to be part of it with the idea that I was creating it, but it's never been sanctioned by the state, because when you do anything by the state, you have to go through all the review processes. And
Right.
that didn't happen. It was just part of the work assignment. And, I feel like this administration would be kind about that, but other administrations may not look so fondly on that. So having somebody else bring it to the table because you're part of this group, that feels better to me than, oh, Dawn, you work at Maine CDC and you're submitting this and you
Yeah.
didn't review it with the state. But it is part of the work. So
and at least it's, knowing that the plan is not final and that it was acknowledged sort of that there's a need to go deeper with implementation. We're just throwing out some examples of some state or some,
opportunities.
right, that to look at for consideration, whether it's the Maine Obesity Advisory Council recommendations or whether it's the work you did with the walking action plan, like it's just giving some
Yeah.
examples, and then whatever's gleaned and whatever's taken, great, but just putting it out there.
Love
Yeah,
that.
and I'm thinking that I probably can submit a comment from the downtown center. I have to be really careful with advocacy, but I feel like there is a place, I think, where I can phrase it right. And my personal comments was about connectivity. Like, I didn't see enough connectivity between community level work and kind of a bigger, anyway. So Emily, I'm gonna figure out how to add another comment and reference this document through that. So thank you for.
But that shouldn't stop you from also highlighting it, because if two people say it,
Right.
it's double
I agree.
attention. And
No, I
Dwayne
totally
has his
agree.
hand up. He's waiting so patiently, so maybe he's going to share it too.
Well, I may be off target, but I like Emily's idea of offering it as an incorporation. Obviously, the DOT will be having all kinds of comments, and then they assimilate them somehow. Because it's kind of a similar example when I mentioned about in Augusta on the comprehensive plan that age-friendly, ended up getting 2 or 3 pages. Essentially what that was me inserting our age-friendly action plan, the important parts of it, the essence of it, and injecting that into the comprehensive plan. So kind of looking at it with this is your plan interjected into the active transportation plan. And in the public transit plan, they have some actual like information bubbles, if you will, of actually telling some actual stories. In other words, actual examples of where folks who are trying to receive services to get to maybe to medical appointments and some of the barriers that they've run into. In other words, they tell some real stories. So I kind of see this maybe as a real example of, as you say, implementation that could maybe get inserted into the active transportation plan in that way. The other thing I would mention, kind of a similar parallel to comprehensive plan, in that kind of a plan becomes important for attracting funding. All of the active transportation plan, so on, you've heard the term that it's a family of plans. The overall umbrella, of course, is the long range plan for transportation. And I've been out of the game, obviously, for a few years now, but it was a requirement by the federal folks that you had to have these approved plans in order to attract funding and so on. So, it's all fitting into something that has that importance to pave the way towards, receiving funding.
You're also, so they don't have funding yet to implement it. They'll be looking for funding to implement it, or do they already have block grant? Because I feel like there's a lot of money right now that has come into the state for transportation. Some of it's granted is regional or community based, but one of the things I was thinking that also probably isn't in there, we have 10 years of funding dedicated to Maine Prevention Network. And the strategies that are written in there, we don't have the work plans yet, but there are strategies written around the built environment and increasing walkability and active transportation. So that is also would also be helpful for them with implementation. Is we've got these great community partners that are engaged and funded. We need more funds to support them to be able to enrich the work. So I think they're an untapped resource. Jesse, happy to have you weigh in on that since you're one of those.
Can you say that again, Dawn?
I knew you were working on something else. I can always tell. No, what I was talking about was the way that Maine Prevention Network has developed the broader system again, much like the Healthy Maine partnerships were, to be able to support initiatives moving forward, including things like this. And if somebody was able to write into the comments that there's another public health entity out there that should be considered for implementation, are these basically there's going to be 9 public health districts, if you count Wabanaki, that will also be receiving funds to be able to be supported by more funding, to be able to go deeper into this work, because we will have a workforce that's engaged and trained as we move forward. So it does seem like it's a missed opportunity. And again, without public health being at the table, which I don't know who's there, maybe Becca's there. I don't know who's on that team that's at DOT, because I do believe you're right that there is a team that is overseeing this, but there is a missing component. Sorry to put you on the spot, Jess.
No, I mean, I
Oh,
agree.
you don't have to respond. I was just seeing if you agreed with that, or if.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I think we're staffing appropriately too.
Well, and this would be something that we would look as additional technical assistance or resources to help support you. And again, training and education, right? It's not just about people, because we don't want to build something that's not sustainable. What Dwayne talked about with his group is sustainable. And Sarah, I think, you're working as a town selectman to build those kinds of approaches too. So if you're looking at a team, you're not going to just say, oh, we have a 2-year, and Brendan brought this up, we have a 3-year project and we're going to have this person, and then, oh, well, that person's gone now, so nobody's doing it anymore. So continuing to think about sustainability is really critical. 10 years goes by really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, having come on board recently to do this work, I feel like, we have had some turnover in our department, and fortunately we have Melissa, who has been doing this work for a long time and has a lot of connections, but I feel like the sustainability piece is important.
Yeah, I was going to add to it. I think with the training and education for folks that will be working to move this work forward with municipalities, it's not so much like that, because I think in the past it has been sort of like you were saying, like, oh, we've got this project we want to move forward, and that's sort of their expertise. But to be able to maintain it, sort of like what they're actually being trained in is helping to establish those relationships and also find out who are the people that are going to keep it going. So it's not just like, oh, actually now my work plan's changed, now I need to shift roles. It already is like people have already signed on who are committed to the process and putting those things in place, like we were talking about before, if it's already a resolution or an ordinance for a municipality, then it's not something that, oh, well, that person's gone now, so that committee sort of fizzled, right? It's actually becomes like a staple of that town, so definitely.
Yeah, there's ownership in it. This has been the most invigorated conversation we've had in a long time, since I think we canceled 2 of our meetings last year. So hopefully we're back on par to meet. And that brings me to the end of our agenda, actually. So action items for all of you is to send me your updates, please, and anything else you care to share. And then we have our tentative meeting schedule for the next 3 meetings, April 27th. And I'm saying this and looking at Anne because Anne's been supporting the Zoom meetings. And this seems to work well because this way we can have people remotely and not have to travel 2 hours to get to a meeting in Augusta. So I hope this still works for you. It definitely works for me. My schedule changes and when I'm available, but this seems to work the best. July 27th, and that's always a tough one, but I don't want to take it off the books because we could be having some really great things happening at that time. So we're going to keep that on the books. And then January 25th. I know it's hard to believe. It's like we skip a whole thing, but so that would be April, July, October. I didn't say October. October 26th. I'm trying to look at my document and tell you all
So
those
it
things. It is in there. It
Yeah.
is in the document.
I don't know that I've created those Zoom links, so.
No, you
I'll,
have not. That's
I
why
will
I
do
brought
that.
it up today. I wanted to make sure you were still okay with providing the Zoom link. And
Yep.
then I really appreciate all of your efforts for that. And then we can, once you've made it, I'll send it back out and put it into everybody's calendar, because this is the last one you probably have in your calendar is what I'm
Yeah.
going to guess should be. And so after today, once Anne sends that to me, I'll send it out to all of you, including our newest member, Dwayne. Yay.
Yeah, I'll get you those either this afternoon or tomorrow.
And please send me any agenda items, or if you want to be highlighted, if there's something you're love to share with us, some outcomes or something that's going on. Emily, if there's some kind of tool that you guys are developing and you want to share, I'm happy to put you on the agenda. As you know, you love to be highlighted. I always call on you.
I love
Madeline,
to
the
talk,
state-
so I'm a good person to call on.
And you do great presentations. They're always awesome. Madeline, same for you. If you want to present what you guys are doing, I'd love to have you do that. We kind of went in softly with you because, you know, we've gone through a couple people in backs and want you to stay and not scare you off. So
I'll keep you guys posted. Our long range plan is supposed to be done in this fall 23. So we should have a meeting that lines up with that pretty well, actually. If maybe it's the October one, I can get
oh,
final plan development. I don't know. We'll see.
that's fabulous. Well, I'll try to remind you that you mentioned that. And then the last thing I'd love to ask people is, we are missing a sector that we always had representation. Robert, I want to say Fonts was his last name, but I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
The planner sectors.
Yeah, planner
And
or regional
not-
EDD.
It
Yeah.
was and I do feel like from, not that Bax isn't great, but we do need the representation from a smaller town of a planner would be great. So if you have any ideas or know somebody who's super into community work and is a planner and wants to join us, we've had some great planners in the past, and once they retired, the people that they had chosen to join us couldn't do it because of family obligations, and we never got a replacement. So that's something to just think about. You don't have to give me an answer, but if somebody comes to mind, or if there's somebody else that you think they should really be part of this group, then just let me know and I'll do some outreach to them.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming, and
Thanks, Dawn.
thank you, Anne, for recording. And we'll send me the link so I can put it in the minutes.